Welcome to week 18. This week we're going to do a project on the Epiphany, which happens in the Bible, Matthew chapter 2, where the Magi or the wise men come and visit Jesus and bear gifts to him. So to begin, we're going to start into the project right away, and then I'll read that passage from Matthew. But I would like you to have a stiffer piece of paper. We're going to use this for a watercolor background. And in order to do that, I'm going to use a larger brush because I want it to be more of a wash instead of thick color and thick bold lines. If we wet the paper first, we're going to wet the paper with water and a big brush. That will allow the paint to travel and not be concentrated in one area. It will let it spread throughout the paper. So I have my paper pretty wet. It's even curling. I'll put it up here so you can see how it's going to travel. And we're going to do this first so we give it time to dry. If it's curling too much, one trick I have is that you can paint the back too, and that will help it kind of stop curling all around. And mine is kind of curling a little too much, so I'm going to wet the back too. So it's a little flatter now. So I want to create a background, and I want to think about the night sky because we are going to add some wise guys to our painting, and they were trying to get to Jesus without actually knowing there was any danger, but we kind of conceive them to be coming in the middle of the night, or because they're following a star. So I'm using blue, and see how it doesn't stay in one spot with all that water on there. And I'm going to kind of focus the center to be a little whiter because I want a star there. Or I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to add purple on the outside because I'd like some purple going on. And then I'm going to mix the two. I just want to create kind of a sky background. And then once that's done, I need to allow that to dry before I can go on to the next step. So I think I'd like a little bit more color in the center. And I don't want to put direct blue on there. I want to kind of wash that out a little bit. So I'll get it wet. Make that really light in the middle, but with a little bit of color. Maybe a little bit more dark down here. Just kind of work back and forth. Be careful not to put too much color on. I do want it to look a little washed out and more like a background. All right, I am about ready to stop because I think that looks good for what I want, I think. I am going to have those guys on the bottom, so I'd like a little bit more color high up. And I kind of I'm a scribbly texture artist, so I kind of do that a little bit more than smooth. Okay, so that's my background. And then I'm going to add my guys in a moment, like so. We'll talk about that. So, Matthew chapter 2, the visit of the Magi. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east, and we have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all of the people's chief priests and the teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem, Judea," they replied, "for it is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard that king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw a child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with the gifts of gold, incense, and of myrrh. And having been warned in the dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So we are then going to add those wise people to our paintings. And in order to do that, we are going to trace these figures on. You can use a template like this, or you can draw your own figures. A lot of the times they wore robes. These are just symbolistic of what they may have looked like. In the classes that I teach, I tell them that they can change the hat that they're wearing, the beard that they're wearing, or the gift that they're carrying, because we only have this one representation. Also, the cutout that I have of the camel is a little bit smaller than a normal camel. The camel should be this high. So I tell them that they should make their own interpretation of how or where that camel is on their drawing. So you can change it. It doesn't have to be set upon what these look like, but they're just guidelines if you struggle with drawing. So, because I want everybody to have a chance to be successful, we're going to try, we can use these tools to help us get there. So you trace the person on the drawing, like so. And notice how I don't have him on the painting all the way, because it doesn't really matter. I just want it to look like, you know, he's in the scene. And the camel, I'm going to put him over here. Now, you can put 3 people in there if you'd like. You don't want it too crowded. They can overlap. You can have a guy riding the camel. Here's where I want to make his legs a little bit longer, and I'm going to make the ground come up like that. And I'm just going to start there. You want to do this after your background is dry. Mine is still a little wet, but for demonstration purposes, we're going to go forward. You can use the black watercolor really thickly to color in your silhouette of your people in camel. You don't want it too wet because you don't want it to travel like our background did. We want it to stay within the lines as much as possible. It doesn't matter if it travels a little bit. I am just going to start filling in this camel with my black watercolor to give you an idea of what that is going to look like in the end. And so you're just carefully filling in that space just like a coloring book. And it doesn't matter because it's supposed to be a silhouette, and silhouettes are black against the sky. Or something that is lighter. And I want my candle. You can also use tempera paint if you have that available, but your black watercolor should be just as good. And so I have filled in for the most part with my black watercolor. And if it doesn't seem black enough to begin with the first time around, you can do it again once it's dry again. But be careful not to add too much color. Too much water to the watercolor. So. And then the guy. Maybe I should do a little bit of the guy so you can see how that looks against the skyline. I'll do his head. I'm just carefully filling in his face. And it is your choice how you put them in there and where they are and how they reach the star. You can think about their journey to visit Jesus and the gifts that they might have been bringing. Epiphany is celebrated on the 6th of January. It's a feast day for the Christians. And when we speak of the 12 days of Christmas, that's the 12th day after Christmas. Because they were not there on the night that he was born, they came and visited later. So you can kind of see how that looks. And just keep going. And I hope you enjoy this project. It's a matter of design and playing with watercolor and experimenting with what silhouettes can do and how you can place them and the story of the Magi. Merry Christmas.